Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at classes and objects in Python. In Python, class is simply a blueprint for creating objects. So what does that mean? So let's consider this analogy. If we look at the production of a car, let's say, so in the production of a car, the blueprint for the car, that means before the car is built, the plans to build the car, that is the class. So the class is the blueprint. And when it comes to the object is something that is built based on the blueprint. So different cars, different type of cars. So that means the different cars you built are the objects. So you could have a car with a different color, with a different engine. So you can have different types of cars. Those actual cars are the objects and the blueprint you used to build those cars, and that is the class. So now we're going to look at them through an example. So we're going to create a new file. We're going to call it classes.py. And the keyword to create a class is the class word. So we're going to create a class of an animal, let's say. So we're going to have class, and we're going to have the name of the class, which is going to be animal. Then we're going to have different functions or different things, different actions that animals do. So in this one, we're going to put in the actions that all animals do. So we are going to look at the specifics when we look at inheritance, which is going to be later in this video. So what do all animals do? They all eat. So we can have an eat function. I don't believe we've looked at functions in this series, so let's look at them now. Simply put, a function is a piece of code or a block of code that has a specific purpose. So let's just delete this class and let's look at an example of a function. So let's say we want a function that adds two numbers. So using the def keyword, we're going to define a function. Def stands for define. So we're going to say define, then we're going to have the name of our function. Let's just call it add. And as we said, it's going to add two numbers. So in the parentheses, we're going to put in what is called a parameter. Parameter is values that our functions take in as input. So in our add function, it's going to take two numbers as input and it's going to return their sum. So it's going to take in two numbers. Let's just call them x and y. You can call them whatever you want. Then inside our function, we're going to return x plus y. This just means that our function is going to accept two inputs, two numbers, and using those numbers, it's going to add them and it's going to return them. That means, what does return mean? That means you can store the added value into a variable. If we just printed it out, for example, if we said print x plus y, that just prints out the sum to the terminal. That means you cannot save the value to a variable, it just prints it out. But when you use return, that means you can use a variable to store the sum. So in order to call our function or to use our function, we're going to create a variable called sum, and we're going to set it equal to add, and we're going to put in two numbers, let's say 4 and 5. And we're going to save our file, and we're going to run it. Nothing happens. That's because we just saved our sum to a variable. We have not printed out anything, so we're going to print sum. We're going to save our file again and run it. As you can see, it prints out 9. So this is just the basics of what a function is. So now we can go back to our class example. So we're going to have class animal, and inside here we're going to have different functions that explain what an animal does. So we said all animals eat, so we're going to have an eat function. When we're dealing with classes, there's this parameter that you always have to put in first. It won't make sense now, but we'll explain it deeply later. So we're going to have a self parameter. This self parameter just represents the object or the class itself, which will make sense later when we use it with a special type of function called initializing function, which we will be seeing later. So let's just print out eating. So let's just say eat is one of the common functions of animals, let's also have another function called breathe. We'll have our self parameter and we're going to print breathing. Now we have an animal class. Now to create an object, we need to use this class as a blueprint, and to do that, let's say we have a variable called animal1, and we're going to set it equal to the animal class, which has nothing in the parentheses, which we'll explain later, but let's just have it like this. And in order to access the eat and the breathe functions, we're going to use the dot operator. So we're going to have animal1 dot. As you can see, we can see the breathe and the eat operator. So let's just test it out to see if it works. We're going to save our file and we're going to run it. And as you can see, it prints out eating. That means it works. Now let's look at the special function I said before, which is the initializing function. So in order to write an initializing function, it has a special name, which is going to be underscore underscore init underscore underscore, then parentheses. And in the parentheses, we're going to have our default parameter, which is self. And inside here, we're going to have initial values of our animal. Let's say our animal has a name. So we want the user, or we want to put in the name of the animal in this parentheses when we create our object. So we're going to have a name. So we're going to put it next to self. So now we can put in a name when in the parentheses, and we want that name to be of the class. So now we're going to use what we have been using as the first parameter, which is self. So we're going to say self dot name is equals to name. So what does this mean? This means that animal is going to replace self. So it's going to be the name of the animal is whatever name we give it here, or whatever name we're going to put in the parentheses. So now we've initialized name. We can also have other variables. This is just a simple example. So now when we create our animal, we have to input the animal's name. Let's just not input anything, and let's just save our file and run it. As you can see, we get an error. It says one missing argument, that is name. So we're going to put in a name. Let's just say dog, and let's save our file and let's run it again, and it starts working properly. So this is a simple example of a class and an object. Now let's talk about inheritance. Inheritance means that we're going to have two separate classes, and one class is going to inherit different functions or variables from another class. So how is that going to work? So we're going to create a new class and we're going to call it dog, which is a type of animal. So naturally it's going to inherit everything an animal does. So to inherit from another class, we're going to put in parentheses the class we want to inherit from, which is going to be animal. And now we can put in functions that are specific to a dog. So we're going to have a sound function. It's going to still have the self parameter, and here we're going to print barking. This is unique to a dog. And we're going to also create another class for a cat. It's also going to inherit animal, and it's also going to have, and the cat class is also going to have a sound function, which is going to print out meow. So now we've created different classes, and let's see how to create objects from them. So we're going to have dog1, which is going to be equal to dog. And if we do dog1 dot, we see the different functions. Now look here closely, because we also have the eat and the breathe function that it took from the animal class. So this means it inherited the two functions from its parent class. So we can call dog.eat. We can also call dog1.sound. We're going to save our file and see if it works. again we get an error, which is saying missing one argument. That's because dog inherited from animal, and in the animal class we have a parameter we have to enter, which is name. So that means it's also going to inherit that. That means when we create a dog, we need to give it a name. Let's just say Jack. Now we are going to run our file again, and as you can see, it prints out both eating and barking. That means the inheritance worked. You can do the same for the cat class. So we can say, we can create cat1, and we're going to create a cat. So we're going to use the cat class, and we're going to call, let's just call the cat. And we're going to have cat1 dot eat, which is a common to all animals, and we're also going to have cat1 dot sound, which is unique to the cat class. So we can run it, and as you can see, we get eating and meow. So this is all you need to know about objects, classes, and inheritance in Python. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more daily programming videos.